Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhagavatam Namne. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Pachatya Desa Tarine. Mukam karoti vachalam bhangam lengkite giri yat kripatamaham vande Sri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Sri Chaitanya Swaram. Hare Krishna. So now we'll offer prayers to Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire. Sranatam Sakatha Krishna Punya Sravana Kirtana Hridiyantastoki Avadrani Vidhunoti Sukrit Sadam Nashtaprayeshu Abhidreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanacha Nandagopakumaraya Govindaya Nama Pankajanabhaya Nama Pankajamanine Nama Pankajanetraya Namaste Pankajankriye. Hare Krishna. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, text number 42. So let me share my screen. So Krishna Krishna. Okay. So 3:5:42. This is the okay, share screen. Share screen. Okay. So Hari 3:5:42. Yes. Share. Okay. Sorry. So first let's read the verse. Yat Shraddhaya Srutapatyaya Bhaktya Samrajyamano Hridaye Avadhaya Jnanena Vairagya Balena Tira Vrajema Tattengri Saroja Pitham. So one more time. Yat Shraddhaya Srutapatya cha Bhaktya Samrajyamane Hridaye Vadhaya Jnanena Vairagya Balena Tira Virajema Tattengri Saroja Pitham. So synonyms. Yat, that which, Shraddhaya, by eagerness, Srutavatya, simply by hearing, Cha, also, Bhaktya, in devotion, Samrijyamane, being cleansed, Hridaye, in the heart, Avadhaya, meditation, Jnanena, by knowledge, Vairagya, detachment, Balena, By the strength of Thira, the pacified Vrajema must go to Tat, that they your angry feet, Saroja Peetham, lotus sanctuary. So, translation and purport by Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Simply by hearing about your lotus feet with eagerness and devotion, and by meditating upon them within the heart, one at once becomes enlightened with knowledge, and on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. We must therefore take shelter of the sanctuary of your lotus feet. Purport. The miracles of meditation on the lotus feet of the Lord with eagerness and devotion are so great that no other process can compare to it. The minds of materialistic persons are so disturbed that it is almost impossible for them to search after the supreme truth by personal regulative endeavors. But even such materialistic men, with a little eagerness for hearing about the transcendental name, fame, qualities, etc., can surpass all other methods of attaining knowledge and detachment. The conditioned soul is attached to the bodily conception of the self, and therefore he is in ignorance. The conditioned soul is attached to the bodily conception of the self, and therefore he is in ignorance. Culture of self-knowledge can bring about detachment from material affection, and without such detachment, there is no meaning to knowledge. The most stubborn attachment for material enjoyment is sex life. One who is attached to sex life is to be understood as devoid of knowledge. Knowledge must be followed by detachment. That is the way of self-realization. These two essentials for self-realization, knowledge and detachment, become manifest very quickly if one performs devotional service to the lotus feet of the Lord. The word Thira is very significant in this connection. A person who is not disturbed even in the presence of cause of disturbance is called Thira. Sri Yamunacharya says, since my heart has been overwhelmed by the devotional service of Lord Krishna, I cannot even think of sex life. And if thoughts of sex come upon me, I at once feel disgust. A devotee of the Lord becomes an elevated Thira by the simple process of meditating in eagerness on the lotus feet of the Lord. So, a devotee of the Lord becomes an elevated Dhira by the simple process of meditating in eagerness on the lotus feet of the Lord. Devotional service entails being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such a bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. So the improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu strongly recommended in this process of hearing from a bona fide devotee, and by following this process, one can achieve the highest result, conquering all other methods. So, here to set the context, we have been hearing the conversation between the Vidura's questions and between sage Vidura and Maitreya Muni. So Vidura's questions have been as vast as, almost like reminding us of the questions of the sages of Naimisharanya as posed to Sudha Goswami in the beginning. They are for the ultimate good of mankind. And Vidura is asking questions regarding the pastimes of the Lord, the complete pastimes of the Lord, including, and he's also ascribing, asking for a description of the engagement of the Lord in the process of creation, maintenance, and destruction. So, Sage Maitreya has from verse 22 to 38, he has covered the creation process. And now he is saying, and this section also reminds us about the conversation between Narada Muni and Lord Brahma. That is, Lord Brahma is describing how he engaged in creation after pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offering so many wonderful prayers to the Lord. Similarly, here, the creation process, after the creation of the material universe, it also brings forth not only the subjects of all living entities in all species, etc. The demigods are also created by the Lord, and they are in charge of the various affairs of maintenance. And so the demigods do not know how to proceed. So with conducting their affairs of material nature, so they are praying to the Supreme Lord, so that to get his blessings, to be empowered to do their jobs. So even in doing some ordinary material task, we need to clear our consciousness a little bit and concentrate on the mind. Bring our mind to some clarity and pray. Start before starting our work, because we know the Lord is in control of all our senses, and he is the master of our intelligence. So here the demigods are offering prayers to the Lord. So in yesterday's words, we heard, that is, the lotus feet of the Lord are by themselves the shelter of all places of pilgrimage. The great clear-minded sages, carried by the wings of the Vedas, always search after the nest of your lotus-like face. Some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best rivers, the Ganges, which can deliver one from all sinful reactions. So the Lord's lotus feet are it's the sum total of all places of pilgrimage. So you don't have to separately search for purification. Simply by meditating on the lotus Pankaja Ankri, so we can be purified. So the great clear-minded sages carried by some of them surrender to your lotus feet at every step by taking shelter of the best rivers. It is just like we go to the river Ganges. Why we go to the river Ganges? Because Ganges is descending by when the Lord Vamanadeva, Lord Vishnu's foot pierces the covering of the material universe. So the Karana ocean and touches the Karana ocean. So that one water which washes his feet is coming down as river Ganges. So it is meaning to say the lotus feet of the Lord is the place for purification. It is the source of the river Ganges. That is why when we take shelter, take a dip in the Ganges, we are cleansed of all material reactions or sinful reactions. In this case, again, the demigods are praising the lotus feet like a sanctuary. Sanctuary means some cool place that is protected. And that is, there is no attack of, illusory energy of the Lord when we think about spiritual matters. So then by meditating upon them, what happens? That is, with eagerness, one becomes at once enlightened with knowledge. And on the strength of detachment, one becomes pacified. So this we have already heard in 127 Srimad Bhagavatam. That is Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita Janaityashu Vairagyam Jnanam Cha Yadahaitukam. That is, by rendering devotional service under the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So that is to say, the process of devotional service is complete in itself. Though some folks may maintain it is some emotional thing, it is for the inferior intelligence, like the Shudras and the Vaisyas and women and all that, to perform bhakti. But that is not what this verse is saying. The knowledge and detachment are byproducts of the process of devotional service to the Lord. And how we engage in devotional service, according to Prahlad Maharaj, we have to hear Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Pada Sevanam Archanam Vandanam Dasyam Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam. That is engaging in the 9 processes of devotional service. And here it is stressed, the first, the most important, hearing from a bona fide devotee. So, and that is, so we can, we go back to this verse. So the minds of materialistic persons are so disturbed that it is almost impossible for them to search after the supreme truth by personal regulative endeavors. But even such materialistic men, a little eagerness for hearing about the transcendental name, fame, qualities, etc., can surpass all other methods of attaining knowledge and detachment. This is why Vidura, in the initial section, he is praising sage Maitreya, those who is situated in the banks of the Ganges. Such sages are full of compassion for the soul and fallen souls, and carry the message of Lord Vasudeva to all parts of the world. So they do not sit in one place, they travel. We have met many traveling saints during this last weekend, 50th anniversary at Kishori temple. They are carrying the message of the lotus feet of the Lord, which is like an umbrella that shelters the living entity from the misery out there. The living entity is suffering from the threefold miseries, that is Adhyatmika, Adi Bhaudika, and Adi Devika. This we have heard earlier in one of the verses. So the lotus feet of the Lord is like an umbrella sheltering the living entity. And only by hearing with eagerness, that is required. Only then we can develop knowledge and detachment. That means the ignorance is destroyed. What is ignorance? The conditioned soul is in the bodily conception of the self, and therefore he is in ignorance. Culture of self-knowledge can bring about detachment from material affection. And without such a detachment, there is no meaning to knowledge. Because we have seen in the material world, people occupying so many, people in high places, they often fall victim to their the Maya. They are caught by our material laws. Even the head of state sometimes has to answer. We know, not sometimes, we know what is going on in the media about the president or the governor, or even the the lawmakers. Sometimes they all come under chastisement by material laws. So similarly, because they are in ignorance, because they act for sense gratification. So unless we come out of that platform, there is no spiritual progress. There is no culture of self-realization. Without that, how can one make progress in understanding the self? So, and then it says, thira, how one becomes pacified. That is, one is not disturbed, even when the cause of disturbance is present there. Not only when the cause of disturbance is absent, it is easy to be pacified. But even when the cause of disturbance is present, he is not moved, or he is not losing his peace of mind. That is the definition of thira. So Lord says, when this body passes through so many stages, that is, देहिनास्मिन् यथा देहे कौमारं यौवनं जरा देहांतर प्राप्तिर्धीरस्तत्र न मुह्यति. So please do not be bewildered when know that at the time of death, this soul passes into another body, because in this soul has passed through from babyhood, childhood, youth, and then adult, and then old age, all that. So we have only when one is a thira, these changes are not bewildering. So at the last stage of life, the soul passes to another body. The thira is not bewildered even by such changes. So that is what Krishna is teaching even in the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Not to be bewildered. That means we need to have knowledge and detachment. And that is the empowerment that we are seeking. So, and then Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, we know that the whole world is revolving around one principle of sexual enjoyment. That is, this material world is considered to be the Maithunagara. That is the prison house of sex desire. We know the prison houses there are in this world for those who disobey the laws of government. They are thrown in there. Similarly, why we are put in this material prison house of Maya? This is because we have disobeyed the laws of material nature, the laws made by the Lord himself. So that is why we are here. But it is also a correction house. The prison house is also a correction house. That is, those who are following the regulations of Vedic principles of spiritual life, they can get out of this this repeating cycle of birth and death. So last paragraph, how does one is, enter into the devotional service of the Lord by being initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and following his instruction in regard to hearing about the Lord. Such bona fide spiritual master is accepted by regularly hearing from him about the Lord. So, the improvement in knowledge and detachment can be perceived by devotees as an actual experience. So, this is why Lord Chaitanya has stressed that hearing from an authoritative source and connecting with Srimad Bhagavatam, they are the source of empowerment for us. So Lord Chaitanya has taught this in his 5 processes, most important for spiritual advancement. And so in verse number 13, Vidura himself says, such a constant remembrance of the Lord by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all material miseries. So, constant hearing and remembrance of the Lord. That is the process by which we can take shelter of the sanctuary of the lotus feet of the Lord. So, I will stop here. So let me see my notes if I have. So the spiritual master brings the disciple to the lotus feet of the Lord by giving him knowledge. So following regulations helps a materialistic person. The conditioned soul is in the bodily conception of the culture of knowledge, of self-knowledge, hearing and applying spiritual teachings depends on applying spiritual teachings, because we are so habituated to being driven by our senses that we always fall down from this formula. Apply constantly the spiritual teachings. That is why it becomes, for one who is steady in applying the regulative principles, it becomes at once, that is, without a delay, you can experience the shelter of the Lord's feet of the Lord, spiritual advancement. So I will and there is no meaning for knowledge, because if knowledge is there, but if we do not practice detachment, our senses are still driving us. The mind, that means the mind is not conquered. So that is the teaching of this particular verse. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Please add any comments, corrections, or
Hare
questions.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Please accept my humble obeisances.
Please accept
Mataji,
my.
I have a meeting now. I need to get in. But before that, this verses, Mataji, I mean, I have a question. Maybe we can discuss it later. So, but this verse is, I mean, I'm feeling it's like a strong message, right? As you last point, you concluded with. I may have knowledge, but if one detachment, there is no point of that knowledge.
Knowledge, yeah.
But it's strong in the purport also. So,
Thank you.
Then second, first, I mean, the point actually, I mean, last few verses is talking about the lotus feet of the Lord.
Yes.
So the whole Lord's body is transcendental, but primarily it's talking about, right? I mean, the demigods are talking about the greatness or the not supremacy, I would say, but yeah, I mean, the perfection one achieves by taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord.
Yes. So we can imagine we are ordinary humans, and so even the demigods are saying, that only by taking shelter. And even Lord Brahma emphasizes in his talks with Narada Muni, I am only by the shelter of Vasudeva I am able to do what I am doing, because Lord empowers him. Even the most exalted being in this universe, Lord Brahma says. Similarly, The demigods are now saying this one. And
Yes.
Lord Shiva is saying this in Rudra Gita. He is advising the Prajetas, take shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. And he is, he's saying only by the Lord's mercy can one achieve anything. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mathaji. I made you as a host. Maybe if others have some points to discuss, you can discuss and all.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept mine too, Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
As usual, Mataji, very sweet
Hare
class.
Krishna. Hare
Of course, the medicine was bitter, so we needed that sweet coating.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, go ahead, Mataji.
No, I've been a little bit away from our, here, and bewildered by myself. So I was nervous this class.
No, Mataji, we did miss you, but my question is, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Particularly, like this message about this entire, place being a prison for sex desires.
Yes.
And people get entrapped.
Yes.
I have a doubt, Mataji, because if you go a few chapters further, I think 22 and 23, we see Devahuti, Kardamamuni. Kardamamuni actually meeting the Lord in person,
Yes.
And then he expresses his desire because he has been instructed by his father Brahma that he has to procreate.
Yeah.
So he asks, I want a favorable wife, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
The Lord actually sanctions it,
Yeah.
And all of this happens. Then, Manu comes, he marries his daughter Devahuti to, Kardamamuni, and they go away. Many years pass. After that, Devahuti is completely emancipated. At that point of time, she expresses her desire again. And, she doesn't express. Actually, Kardamamuni himself realizes, and then what he does is he creates this wonderful space mansion which can travel. And on that, he and Devahuti, they enjoy for a very long time.
Yes.
A long time.
Yes.
My question is, he saw the Lord personally.
Yeah.
In spite of that, yes, he had the instruction to fulfill, but what was the need for him to spend years and years and years, like 100 celestial years or something like that, in enjoyment, and then doing whatever after giving the 9 kids, then he goes back to his devotional life.
Yes.
So is this really permitted? As long as you have that consciousness, what is going on? How is it that he is not in that trap? And why is it we are all? I'm not questioning it from a anti-mood or anything. I just want to understand what's going on, Mataji.
Prabhuji, when I was reading the section, I also thought, there is like there is a very large section how they enjoyed, and that was, I was also myself a little bit having the same kind of thoughts. But what can we say? In that case, as Maharaj says, he's engaging the material energy. So a sage who has so much power, he is not corrupted by those activities. Whereas we little intelligence that we have, and we don't have so much spiritual strength. So our knowledge gets washed away, and then after the Devahuti gets her children, he immediately leaves also. So how is it possible? For great personalities, what is the need for such an elaborate and such a long period? We do not know. The great sages can engage Maya in whatever way they please. But we are not to be carried away like that. We are littles, very tiny sparks.
So
they are very, like very advanced souls. Yeah.
So yeah, you're right, Mataji. But then, at the same time, what goes on in my mind is, again, I'm expressing it openly because I don't want it to stay in my mind and think wrongly about it.
Yeah.
So if you look at Vishwamitra,
Yeah.
Menaka
Yeah.
episode,
Yeah.
then if you look at Ravana himself,
Yeah.
so these are different shades of material desires.
Yes.
Then what is it that really, because Ravana was also very accomplished.
Yes.
Vishwamitra was also very accomplished.
Yes.
Ravana had seen Lord Shiva personally.
Yeah.
And somebody like Vishwamitra would see Vishnu and Ishvara and Brahma regularly. So it's a little bewildering.
Bewildering, yes. These are all. Each individual. I suppose it is each individual's, experience of. Like it's very individual stories. Vishwamitra had to struggle so many times to achieve perfection. Finally, to be called Brahmarshi. He failed so many times. Rajarshi, yes. And he could never achieve the Brahmarshi status, right?
Yes, Mataji.
So it is just shows how it is. And Ravana, of course, shows another side. How enjoying Lord's internal potency without the Lord, that can destroy, that can destroy you completely, however exalted you are. So these are all, very, that I suppose each one story is very, edifying. We cannot see the limits to, fathom the limits each one takes us to,
Yes.
Hare Krishna. I mean, this is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Okay. If no more questions, we can end the call. Thank you all very much. Vancha kalpatarubhya chakrupa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Grandhraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Hare നോക്കൂ ഇതെനിക്ക് ക്ലോസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ഇങ്ങോട്ടൊന്ന് വന്നേ. ഞങ്ങളുടെ വീഡിയോ കോളേ ക്ലോസ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്നില്ല. എങ്ങനെയാണ് ക്ലോസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്? ഓണായിട്ട് കിടക്കുക. അത് ഫുൾ സ്ക്രീൻ വരുമോ?
ഫുൾ സ്ക്രീൻ
ലീവ് മീറ്റിംഗ് കാണുന്നില്ല.
അത് ഫുൾ സ്ക്രീൻ വരാതെ ഇങ്ങനെ ഇത് ഫുൾ സ്ക്രീൻ വരികയല്ലേ?
ഫുൾ സ്ക്രീൻ അത് മോഡ് ഓഫ് ആയി പോയി. I don't know what to do. ഇതിങ്ങനെ കിടക്കുക.
അതിങ്ങനെ
ഞാൻ ഓഫ്
അതെല്ലാം
അതെ.